Hello and welcome to Pinky Swear Confessions on the run up to the publication of Pinky Swear, which is coming up now, gosh, in like less than a month and a half. I've invited some of my very favorite authors to join me and offer a little Pinky Swear confession. And today's guest is Robyn Harding. Hello, Robyn.
Hi, Danielle. Thank you for having me. And I'm turning my head because I have pinky swear somewhere and I don't know where it
That's
is.
okay. Don't fret at
But I
all.
loved it. I loved it. I will put that out there and I'm so excited to talk to you about it.
Thank you. And Robyn was sweet enough to give me a beautiful blurb for the book too. So Robyn Harding is the author of the upcoming novel, which I've just started, Strangers in the Villa, which is amazing, as well as The Haters, The Drowning Woman, The Perfect Family, The Swap, The Arrangement, Her Pretty Face, and The Party. She is a two-time finalist for the Crime Writers of Canada Best Crime Novel Award, as well as a screenwriter and executive producer, and she lives in Vancouver, BC. Thank you for joining us, Robyn.
Thank you for having me. Coming March 3rd, so I'm
March,
just for
right on
you.
my right on the tail of right, exactly.
Yes,
We were
just
actually trying to find a way to be in the same place at the same time, but
we
we
were.
haven't quite figured
Were.
that
I
out.
would love that.
Next time.
Yes.
So okay, so it's what sort of, pinky swear confession do you have for us today, Robyn?
Okay, here's my embarrassing confession about what a little monster child I was. But when I was about 8, I think, so young, didn't guess grasp right from wrong. Um, I am the oldest sister, and I have two younger brothers, and I always wanted older siblings. Like I just thought it'd be so cool. My best friend had an older brother and older sister, and they could drive, and they were like cool teens hanging out at their house all the time, and that was like what I really wanted. So a new girl came to school and we started playing together and she was really nice. And I just thought in my head, creative little liar pants that I was like, oh, I'll just pretend that I have an older brother and sister. So I created these cool older brother and sister who were like, oh yeah, like my brother just took me out in his car in his Camaro and yeah, my sister's friends were over and they're like doing my hair. And I just made up this whole fantasy. And then, like a dummy, I invited her to my house to play. And they're like, she says in front of my mom, uh, where are your older brother and sister? And my mom's like, what are you talking about? She doesn't have an older brother and sister. And I was like caught in this lie. And I still remember that feeling of just like going red from the whole way down, even though I was 8, and being like, I don't even know what I said, but I was just like, there's nothing to say. I was caught. And so hopefully I learned from that. I've never lied to anyone. I've never made up fantasy people in my life since. So
Smart,
hopefully
smart.
it,
Well, it was like the early thriller writer. You were just like, you were already
I
halfway
was
to where we
I
are
was
now.
creating worlds. I was creating worlds. So
I
yeah.
that's hardly, I don't even know if that's even shameful. I just feel like that's just that's just you got a little ahead of yourself on the whole writing thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure we've all done that. Oh my God, that's great. Well, that you're like, Mom, couldn't you have been a little more subtle about
Oh,
it?
but also it's funny, my mom was really young, right? Like my mom, I was 8. I think my mom had me when I was 24, when she was 24. So she was like 30. Where is she gonna have these cool teens, right?
Oh, right. That was like my mom too, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. She'd have
Yeah.
that
So,
would not that she'd have had 10, she'd have been 10 or 12 when they were born, but
yeah,
that
exactly.
wasn't gonna work out very well. So,
Yeah.
oh God, that's a good one. Wow. I'm glad you were 8, Robyn, and not like,
Yes.
28.
Not doing it like when I was 25 or anything. So,
Yes. Yes, I appreciate
yeah.
that. Okay, well, do you have a question for me?
I do have a question for you because I really love Pinky Swear. I dove into it and I took it on my romantic anniversary weekend, and I'm like, leave me alone. It was like,
Oh no.
took it to Galliano Island. I loved it. And I thought it was really interesting that you chose to talk about infertility because I know you are a mom. And what you wrote about, like I have lots of friends who have experienced that, and I know there's so much like shame and envy and jealousy and so much wrapped in up in that experience. And you wrote it so honestly, it felt very real. And I was wondering why you chose to write about that and where your knowledge comes from.
Well, I mean, I was super blessed when it came to fertility. I had two pregnancies, two births. I had complications. I had C-sections and emergency C-sections and would have
Mm.
died in the 1800s. So I had my own sort of like, I
Right.
feel like every woman has like some story about it's
Yeah.
never quite exactly how you plan it. My dad was an OBGYN, so I grew up
Ah,
hearing stories all the time about, these sort of I mean, he was also a storyteller, so like fantastical births and like, the whole idea that like a woman was like the baby came out and you just barely caught it. I mean, who knows even how much of that was true, right? But and about, and some of also the heartache stories that, that he experienced. And I actually thought about going into medicine. I was pre-med and I applied to med school and
oh,
I know, weirdly, but I think as a woman of a certain age, you sort of used that phrase a little earlier when we were talking before we were started recording. I think we know women who have had those experiences.
yes.
We also know that there's this weird shame that comes from all sorts of things related to being a woman that where we really shouldn't have shame, but we don't even know that we shouldn't have shame. For instance, for me, my shame was that my dad was the head of the medical he was the chief medical head of medical staff at the time at his hospital at the time when my daughter, who was 26 almost now, was born. And whatever he said, no matter what, you are not having a cesarean section. You are gonna have I
Really?
know you're gonna have a regular birth. We're not inducing. So my daughter was 8 days late. I was beside myself, miserable.
Yeah.
And I finally went into labor. And basically, I never progressed. My cervix didn't dilate.
Uh,
It's a very normal thing. That thankfully with modern medicine is not a problem. But they finally let me sleep. I had labored for so long and not progressed. And when I woke up, they were like, you were doing a C-section. The baby's heart rate is dropping. We're
oh,
worried
wow.
about her. We're gonna get, and I was
Uh,
like, no, 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 no. That's like the failure. I can't, so it was this, and of
yeah.
course I was beside myself with hormones and lax and
Right.
everything else. And they were like, oh no, this is what we're doing. But I sort of feel like I wanted to tap into those things that we feel shameful about that we have no control over.
I know, like and there's so many, right? Like breastfeeding. Some people just
Oh,
can't,
another one,
right?
exactly. I mean, and I have tons of friends who have had that experience. And it is like, and then in some ways, it's the women themselves are the worst. Like those doulas who come in and tell you that you're supposed to just like sit in a chair and give birth without, medicine,
Yeah,
and you're supposed to be able to latch that baby on one-handed. And I mean,
yeah,
it's also natural. And it
yes,
is. I mean, I think for most people, that's a lovely experience when it is. But if it isn't natural or it doesn't work,
yeah,
you just and the last thing you need in the moments when you're trying to have a baby or give birth or have just given birth is to feel shame on top of,
yeah,
right?
exactly, right.
So
Yeah.
I loved exploring that, and I think one of the things that Lexi, who's the protagonist who can't
Mhm.
get pregnant, feels is a sort of weird resentment to her friend who's doing this incredible favor for her to have this, to carry her baby. But at the same time, there's this weird like, why does she get to do it? Why can't I do it?
Right.
And I think that that's the sort of ugly underside of all of us, right? We all have those. Of course, she's incredibly grateful and
Mhm.
but she's also, it's not just gratitude, right? It's not that
Yeah.
because nothing human is that simple.
It's so complicated, right? Imagine, and then going forwards that you're, this friend comes to visit Auntie Mara, and it's like, well, she's the biological mother. She'll know that for her entire life. So you really got into those complexities
Right.
really
Well,
well.
thankfully she's not the biological mother, but she's
Oh,
the
right. She's not the biological mother.
yeah.
She's the
Lexi's
carrier. That's right.
but still, it's the same. It's
Yeah.
that there's this part of there's a part of that baby that will always belong to Mara and not to Lexi. And I think that
Yes.
is the complication.
That
So
experience. Yeah.
that's a great question. And I did have so much fun exploring that. I have so many, I feel like the older I get, the more I just want to write about things that relate to, women.
Me too. Me
Right?
too. I love it, right? And usually angry women.
I know. I feel that, and I think there's a good reason for that. So,
Yes. Agree, agree.
so anyway, that was
Awesome.
so fun. Everybody, if you're listening, feel free to add your own Pinky Swear confession or your own thoughts about the ways in which women, take on shame that we shouldn't, or even just say hi to Robyn and I. So, and don't forget to pick up Pinky Swear and Strangers in the Villa. And thanks
I
again,
had Pinky
Robyn.
swear here. Thank you, Danielle. Love chatting to you.
All right, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.